Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is the Narcissistic Resistance. And this resistance video is sponsored by contribution from Natasha. And here's her story. Hi, Ollie. I find your reading of other experiences therapeutic, but I get a kick out of your analysis of each letter. You are for sure the narc whisperer. Sincerely, thank you. My experience started when I was intrigued with the narc, Rob. I met him on plentyoffish.com. We met 2 months later in person. I made the mistake of having sex with him on our first date. He is a somatic narcissist, and his appearance and soft-spoken manner really had me intrigued immediately. We spent days just talking in his empty apartment. Why is this it wasn't a clue? Your first clue wasn't as a grown man in an empty apartment? While I talk, he quietly gathered information. I later put the pieces together to figure out he was an empty apartment due to the previous supply going no contact and leaving the city to go back home to her parents. I genuinely thought Rob was into me. He would stare at me at the time. I thought that was due to raw attraction. I now know I was merely being sized up to determine if I was viable prey. On our first date on the town, we partied and hung out. We got some food to eat at a pizza spot. I recall him getting in line and making eyes with the girl across from us. I was thrown off by that interaction and let him know in a casual way that was rude. In all honesty, I played it off because I thought he was extremely good looking and we weren't anything serious, of course. Of course, girls are going to give him attention. I rationalized so much of his disrespectful behavior. I was dating a few people around this time. So was Rob. Him being flirty in front of me was something I never experienced, and it made me take a step back. Kind of made you, probably because you were used to always having all the attention on you. And I think he was probably able to ascertain the best way to gain your respect or to get your attention is to act like he's not all that into you. It's a ploy. Rob must have noticed that and started asking to spend more time with me. He would go with me almost everywhere. I work at a school. During the summer I needed orientation, and he waited the entire day for me to finish. He went with me to a boring court hearing I had regarding school loans, and just about any random place he was there, we became inseparable, and he never complained. It sounds like he's looking for... I think I already see where this is going. I guarantee you this is another man and a woman, another woman in a man's body. However, I knew he was still online dating, but I was just happy being around him. Eventually, he asked me to be his girlfriend. When I asked him why now, he stated that he didn't want anyone else to date me. In my gut, I knew something wasn't right, but I was all wrapped up in Rob, and was glad he wanted me. I made the mistake of telling him about my mental breakdown in college. I had a full course load, working a work-study job, pledging, and no sleep for 3 days straight, which led me to missing an entire semester in and out of a couple of different psych wards. Rob would joke and call me crazy checks. He said... Rob would joke and call me crazy checks. He said that when people went mental, the government would pay them. That's how he came up with that name. I laughed and acted like he was an ass for that. Finally, I told him I didn't like being called that name. He stopped for a while and randomly would call me Cece, the abbreviated version of the name. His level of disrespect towards me was subtle but ever growing. Rob would tell me randomly that I'm not anything like the woman he would date, that I was tall, how he wasn't about looks, other qualities were more important, that he was sapiosexual, attracted to intelligence. Yeah, right. I bet he's also attracted to dudes. I guarantee you. I guarantee you, because this is where this is going. It's like I wasn't gonna call it out right away. Okay, yes, this is a woman in a man's body. Okay, probably son husbanded by his mother. Okay, this is an 8-page letter. I'm only on page 1, so I can see where this is going already. He's kind of like pseudo controlling you, like with this mental manipulation, a lot like girlfriends do to each other, like in friends group, because this is probably how his mother, he's witnessed his mother interact. So that's what he's doing here, and he's playing off all your inferiorities. He understands it, and he uses it against you. And because it's a man, and like you said, a guy you're attracted to, a good-looking guy, you're not seeing it. So he's subtly attacking your confidence. And you don't even realize how he's doing it. I now know even that many of those I now know even that many of those comment was used as a tactic, a dig at my self-esteem. Exactly. I must admit that I was seeking approval and acceptance from men in general at that stage in my life. That's exactly what I told you earlier. Okay, you were somebody who was getting the attention of men, and the best way when you're a woman in that state to get her is to make her think you got other options and you're not, and that just plays on your insecurities. I believe that Rob could smell that desire a mile away and worked at breaking my self-esteem down for years. At first, I caught him cheating. The first time I caught him cheating, I looked at his iPad he left at my place. He was chatting with Adrian and how nice it was to kiss her. We argued about this over the phone all night, and I told him we were done. He could come and get his things from my apartment tomorrow. He kept trying to explain his bullshit away. The next couple days, he came over and bought me a kitten. He pleaded with me and explained that anything with Adrian was nothing compared to what we had, that it was stupid and it wouldn't happen again. I wish I followed my gut, but I wanted Rob, and the fact that he was legit begging to be with me didn't make it any easier to move on from him. Right. See, this is like he understands he could get away with cheating on you because, again, you take that as, because he knows a lot of your confidence is based on whether or not these guys were wanting you, and he knew how to attack you. The real question here, Natalie, is why are you susceptible to this in the first place? My best friend, roommate at the time, Sean, warned me, if you take him back, he will keep crossing the line, and you will keep adjusting to his fucked up behavior. She was spot on. This breakup to makeup situation was the foundation of this relationship. If I wasn't catching him lying about being in a relationship, he was receiving inappropriate texts from girls or sending dick pics from my apartment to people, or just blatantly being disrespectful. See, this is, at this point you gotta take a step back and say, why am I putting up with this, Natasha? I'm sorry, I realized I just called you Natalie before. Natasha, why are you so caught up in this guy? And this is the problem a lot of times where women who have been beaten down, and usually this is put into you by your mother, okay? And and for everybody, Natasha is a black female, so this is another black female sending in a story, okay? And I'm telling you, I think this ability for him to attack your confidence comes from somewhere. This just didn't fall out of a vacuum. There's history with you in your past that made you susceptible to this. For him to realize all I got to do is attack Natasha's confidence by letting her know I have other options. Once he realized that you will react to him having other options the way you do, he knew he could cheat on you with rapidity. And it would only drive you back to him more, because you take this as like, what's wrong with me? And it's not about you. He's a sociopath. He's not even your problem. Again, this is another situation where the narcissist in front of you isn't the narcissist who destroyed you. Somebody else damaged you. I'd break up with him and not talk to him for a week or two. He'd beg me to get back with him, swearing off social media or whatever else I needed to do to get back on my good side. After hours of talking about what I needed from a relationship and what I wasn't going to tolerate, I would eventually take him back. There were times, probably at the height of the trauma bonding, where he would storm out of my apartment, and I felt such intense feelings of abandonment. I would text incessantly and email stating, what can I do better to make this relationship work, or cursing him out. See, he storms off emotionally, knowing you're going, and what I am saying, you're just backing up what I'm saying. You have put all your self-worth into this guy accepting you. And again, this guy wasn't your problem, okay? Because you were getting self-esteem boosts from dating earlier on. Somebody trained you to put it in your mind that your self-worth is attached to your vagina somehow. I know who my main suspect is. I know who my main suspect would be on that one. I cringed just typing out the truth and how pathetic I was. I spent so much wasted time on this fuckboy. I didn't realize Rob was planning these fake fits of anger to go on dates with an old fling or a new potential sugar mamas. He loved the drama, and at the beginning I was wrapped up in the drama as well. Potential sugar mamas, huh? So that's what he's after. Like I said, probably already a son husband, looking for a mommy. Of course, after we got back, he triangulated me with a number of these girls, the main one being Nicole. Nicole has been Rob's secondary source for over 7 years. He initially called her a friend, though they've had a sexual relationship in the past, and eventually started texting her quite often and hanging out with her when I broke up with him for yet another act of disrespect. He left her stranded once during the height of the triangulation when they were going out on a date on Valentine's Day by stating he was coming back to me because our love is real despite everything. I often still wonder if Rob was really that clever to set up these tactics, or was just going with whatever the supply allowed. Exactly. This girl Nicole's probably not all that different than you. He knows the type of girls to triangulate with. Nicole's probably another black female whose mother destroyed her. See, and this is the real sin of the black family. Okay? Because not only is there not a father around to help raise men and to have some rationality over the family, and that to show, because everything's emotional. Okay? The mothers then go out and destroy their daughters, turn their sons into son husbands, and then you're really dating his mother. This is the real shame of the black family that nobody wants to talk about. This is what happens when you destroy the family bond. Rob's not your main problem. Yeah, he's a sociopathic fucking son husband narcissist. Who set you up to accept this bullshit? Who set you up to put all of your self-worth on the opinion of this fucking loser? I know where my money's at. Nicole seemingly stopped communicating with him for a good amount of time. Rob would mention how a horrible friend and a talk about her picking her loser men. I believe he would do this to keep me partly jealous and to keep feeding my insecurities. Of course, because that's how he keeps you. He keeps you by feeding your insecurities. That's how he keeps you around. It's obvious. That's how he keeps you in check. By letting you think that you're not the only one. And you're in such a desperate need to have him choose you ultimately over every other girl. You're never going to win. All he wants you to do is keep trying to prove it. After his split from Nicole and him not being overly disrespectful to me, things between us felt amazing. Why would they feel amazing after he just keeps going out and deep dicking these whores? What feels amazing about that? Because he's choosing you at that point. You don't feel, it's an empty feeling. It's not real. It's something that you were trained. It's not even a real emotion you should be feeling. The only reason you feel like that is because someone, probably your mother, trained you to put all your self-worth in that. That's why you got fucked up by this guy. Because not only does his rejection and cheating almost make you want him more, when he is there giving you the supply, you think this is amazing, and it's not amazing. It's all phony. It's all fake. Someone stole your self-esteem and who you are and your self-worth. Somebody assigned that your self-worth is attached to your vagina. Rob would say how I was his soulmate, and outside of the womanizing issue, I thought we had a solid relationship. Short-lived, 3 or 4 months later, I would learn about him and some past fling or person he met at the library. Rob was so bold and disrespectful with the shit during one devaluing stage, he got this girl's number in the courtroom where we waited for hours to settle his speeding ticket problem. He literally sat across the room from me and exchanged numbers. When I confronted him about it, he said he only got her number because she was a babysitter. We might need one in the future. Of course he's going to keep doing it because he knows it only locks you in more, makes you jealous, and makes you want him more. Pure bullshit that I was groomed to overlook while ignoring my gut feeling that I knew Rob wasn't shit. I wasn't too innocent at first. I thought doing tit for tat would protect me. But many times I found myself with other men in an effort to move on from Rob and prove to him that men were out there were interested in me because you've assigned all your value to your fucking pussy. Your mother did this to you. Your mother did this to you. She had to have. He's not your problem. These other men, the problem is if you have assigned all your value to your vagina. Men wanted to date me, and when I broke up with him for another disrespectful act, I entertained talking to other people. I made the mistake of telling him that I did have sex with someone else when I truly believed we would never get back together. I'm pretty sure we've been through the 7 cycles of fuckery that most narc channels described. Rob initially let me know that he was married young and had two boys from that marriage. He hardly spoke about his children. I thought at the time he was stressed out by the mother of the children. He did a great job smearing her name to me. I now know that one of Teresa's biggest issue is Rob's toxic nature. During the second year of the relationship, we decided to have Rob's boys come spend the holidays with us. The boys' grandma agreed, and the boys did come stay at my apartment. Rob did minimal with the boys, but I chalked it up to be a guy thing and due to them getting reacquainted. I later found out that Rob has another son he didn't tell me about. I found out by reading a notebook that he had. He acted like it wasn't a big deal that he didn't tell me, much like he did with anything I confronted him on. He has mastered de-emphasizing everything that doesn't fit his agenda. Rob has also done professional boxing and is an electrician by trade. When we met, I was working as a teacher's assistant and going to graduate school for my master's in school counseling. I always thought of Rob as my partner that struggled with breaking old habits, but my partner nonetheless. How naive of me. This man, I'm inclined to call him Robot, was jealous of me and I couldn't even say it. He was always on a mission to one-up me to make himself look better, like a woman. Like a competitive woman. I'm telling you, he's a son husband. He's a woman in a man's body. I made that very easy for him as I'm a natural giver and a team player that moves away from the limelight. Rob is an entitled taker, user, and needs all attention on him. He was competing with me regarding intelligence and achievements, I figured out later. He never seemed happy about my accomplishments. However, he was there for my graduation and always there for me if I had to go anywhere. This is the part that somewhat still puzzles me, Ollie. What I remind myself when I think about Rob's intentions, he had to step his game up so I wouldn't leave him before he was ready to discard me. I'm afraid I helped him be a subtler emotional con man in the process. Yeah. You made it easy for him because you put all like I said. And you've already let in, he's the one who discarded you. You would never have discarded. The problem is you would have never ended up getting rid of him. Because he had you caught in the cycle. Reject, take away, devalue you the way you see value. And then when he comes back, it's like you get this dopamine rush that, oh, I got him back, I won. You haven't won shit. Throughout the cycle of abuse, Rob would fuck up and I would ultimately come back full circle to what can I do to improve myself and further in this relationship further. Year 3, I told myself I wasn't going to continue to play myself for this man. Rob needed to prove consistency and commitment for the duration of this relationship. I wanted peace in that relationship and the back and forth had to stop or we needed to part ways. At the time, both of us were discovering the history behind Christianity and learning more about African spirituality. I was on a quest for truth, and I believe Rob was as well. Most likely, this was probably his best mirroring act to date. I stopped going to church, but he continued for some time. I found out he was on the hunt in the church, telling girls he wasn't in a relationship. Dude, let me tell you something. You see a black dude in church like that, he's looking for pussy. Those churches, they are nothing. They're houses of fucking hedonism. I live in the hood. I know what they are. I know what they are. I know what they do to the black community. Those churches in black communities are poison. They're poison. The teachers are the preachers are charlatan. Friggin', they're a bunch of charlatan, jack-legged scam artists coming in their Range Rovers from their expensive houses in the suburbs that all the poor black people are paying for. Most of the time, he's in there running train on half the congregation. And you see a guy in there. Normally, they're in there to pick up his scraps. Rob swore he was different and a better man because of me and that we were meant to be, and it wasn't a matter of me believing him. I knew it too. However, I didn't allow myself to see the long-term effects of his actions had on me. He grew me to the point I thought he had just had to learn new behaviors and stick with it. I knew we were meant to be And this was mainly due to our bond and how much Rob and I had in common, and how his quiet, tough demeanor seemed so much like my father. I always adored my father, but he was in and out of my life from the age of 3. My father is a hustler and a force to fuck with in his heydays. My father was extremely abusive towards my mother and had a harem of women that my mother either knew about or later learned about. Are you seeing? So here's your back history. So here's why, Natasha. Here's why. My mom never spoke negatively about my father's in my 33 years of life. When my father came around when I was younger, the world stopped for us. I enjoyed his presence until it was gone. Rob did such a job mirroring me and appealing to me in a similar way that even with all the crap, I was willing to fight for the relationship I envisioned. Rob, so you're really fighting for your dad. This is what I'm trying to tell you, everybody. Girls need their dads. Rob would write me poems and post them on Facebook or Instagram. Post a pic of us together. Seems he would put on his best act for a few months, or I just wasn't as observant, and love bombed the hell out of me. Going out, him fully engaged, he really became everything I wished for during the love bombing phase. At this stage, he was living with me rent-free for a while, and months later paying half the rent. I also helped him get a car and pay off some tickets. Rob would suggest places for us to go, but most of the time I was more than happy to pay. I knew he didn't have that much money. He's an electrician. What are you talking about? He made pretty good money. Like I said, he just wanted a sugar mama. When we didn't go out, we binge-watched Netflix, and at one point, Rob was obsessed with the series called Penny Dreadful, and more specifically, the character Dorian Gray. He also loved the movie The Talented Mr. Ripley in all versions of Mr. Jekyll and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I only later caught on to why he had so much interest in these shows. We went on a trip to New Orleans with my friends, and I paid for the entire trip. He did eventually pay me back. I had a miscarriage during our trip, and Rob was very dismissive, barely acknowledging my pregnancy. But I just moved on as if that was okay. I wasn't ever secure with the status of the relationship, and though I wanted a child, I knew that it must have not been meant to be. Him showing me no concern was his mask slipping after the New Orleans trip. I know he believed he had me wrapped around his hands. I can even see it in the pictures we took together. I cared more about us than he ever could. Rob was there for me when my grandma died and when my best friend died about a year apart. This served to make the bond that much deeper for me. I have a small family that lost two of the most important people in my life and could bear to think about losing anyone else. Though Rob was still being shady, I pulled away but came back around in less time. I did start recognizing his chameleon act as very superficial, and I would do most of the work of fooling myself by superimposing what I wanted from him as if I was getting it. You put everything, your whole value into this guy accepting you. And even when it's obvious he's trying to reject you, you'll lie to yourself. Though in reality, he was only there for me in the physical. I believe this is when his ego started to get the best of him. He knew I was being loyal, and I depended on him a great deal for emotional support, and that I adapted to his bullshit lies to a certain extent. When my grandma died, my mom had to move in with us. Rob acted as if this was okay with him, and they met before and seemed to get along wonderfully. When she moved in, he started treating her very differently. So cold, speaking very little to her. She would attempt to speak to him and was very short and with her and wouldn't give her eye contact. When I asked him why he wouldn't talk with my mom, he stated that he's not as talkative as we are at home when he's chill. I wasn't buying that, but like most other issues, I let it go to keep the peace and not be a nag. My mom got the hint and for the most part stayed in her room. She didn't want to get in the way, and I appreciated that, and quite frankly spent all of my energy doing whatever Rob wanted to do. Rob seemed to be annoyed or found ways to interrupt whenever Mom and I did find moments to talk. At this time, he would ask if I'd seen this or knew where that thing was. This is what women do to each other. This is what women do to each other. And you're dating this thing. I noticed this, but not being one for confrontation, I worked on making sure all parties were comfortable. They were my team and my only support system, as I went no contact with my uncle after my grandma's funeral for bad talking my mom and me. Sometime before I found out I was pregnant for the second time, I went to the OB/GYN doctor, and he let me know that I had a curable STI, sexual transmitted infection, and prescribed the medicine for it and Rob and me. I wanted to accuse him because I knew he had unprotected sex with someone when we were broken up. I knew because I found a video of them on his phone. However, I choose to leave it alone because I also had a get over my ex sex with someone that was at least a year or more prior, and he and I used a condom. During my pregnancy, and very near the time my best friend Sean died of stage 4 cancer, I was hospitalized and diagnosed with having psychosis. I stayed in the hospital for 4 days. My mom thought I was stressed by the loss of my Grams, Sean, and Rob's boys visiting during the summer. They were teenagers by this time. I agreed I was completely disappointed and concerned for my child's well-being. I also had partaken in the use of green ganja on a regular basis and thought that had something to do with my breakdown. Before this, I had not experienced something like this breakdown for over 10 years. Much of what happened in the hospital I do not remember. However, it wasn't nice. My mom and Rob had it out with words, and Rob accused my mom of neglecting me when I needed her. He may not be wrong there. I'm sorry, but your mother seems very, very cold in all of this. Your grandmother died, and now, what, is your mother a child? So your grandmother dies, and now your mother has to move in with you? So what, was your mother dependent on your grandmother, much like the guy you're dating is dependent on you? No wonder it wasn't the ganja. It was the stress of all of it. Here you are, you're dating this son husband as a sugar mama. Your mother's using you as a sugar mama, and you're pregnant and actually becoming an actual mother. He's not wrong about your mother. He's a fucking... Listen, it's two sociopaths. Listen, it's two gigolos fighting for the sugar mama. That's what you got here. And it might not be a heart. It might not... Listen, I know your mother has a lot to do with your well-being. Your father as well. But your mother is far from innocent. And the problem is, in these black families, the mother is like untouchable. The mother's the queen, and that's bullshit. Because it's usually the mother that does the fucking preponderance of the damage. Pardon me. He wasn't happy with how my mom communicated with me when I was having my episode, and my mom didn't appreciate the way he was parading me around in the hospital like a show and wrongly accusing her of mistreating her child. They kept their distance from me because I think they're both using you. There's no good people here, Natasha. They're both using you. During the rest of my pregnancy, they had one encounter where I had to step in because it looked as if Rob was about to fight my mother and my mother was not backing off. He had a narc rage and my mother called him a boy. This is what I'm talking about. Your mother is a grown-ass woman trying to get into a fight with a man. This is the black mother. I'm sorry. This is what raised this is what raised the black women on my channel. And black women and the black men in that fucking mentality. Throw down at any age. Throw down at any age. And you just want to be loved. And unfortunately, the only way you learned love from this woman in your family is through your vagina. It's through the attention of a man who happens to be a woman in a man's body, just using you for whatever he can get off of you. And the worse he uses you, the harder you want to try to please him. 6 months into my pregnancy, I found out that Rob had an encounter in a bar and kissed some girl. 8 months into the pregnancy, on our trip to Mexico for my friend's 40th birthday, I found out from a friend that he posed... You went to Mexico 8 months pregnant? I mean, that's kind of nuts, too. You got to make better decisions than that. On my friend's 40th birthday, I found out from a friend that he propositioned a girl we met in a resort to come to our room for oral sex. He also started back texting Nicole and commenting on her Facebook. Why wouldn't he? You let him get away with everything. Why would any of this surprise you at this point? You're pregnant, he's cheating on you. What is going on? My friend didn't tell me this until we got back to the States. I was numb by this point. I asked Rob why he didn't come to me instead of out to a stranger. He stated that he didn't want me at the time. I felt so small at that point, but still determined to have peace in my house and overwhelmed by all I had to do for my son's survival. At this stage, I was glad Rob was still going to doctor's appointments with me and encouraging me to eat healthier. He was picking me up from work every day, and at the time, that meant a great deal to me. Gee, thanks, in the car you bought for him? In the car you bought for him, that's awfully nice. He'd pick you up pregnant with his child. What a guy. I still imagined us being strong, loving, and an awakened family unit. Even with his that his behavior was off, he would find random times to leave the home, to throw out the trash and go to the dollar store. He had a Google number I found out about and was still getting bullshit reasons for some woman having his number or women calling him. When I confronted him on things of this nature, Rob broke the shower rod, cracking the stair railing, broke my phone once, and had the nerve to smack the food with his hands. Smack my food with his hands. When I asked him why he would smack my food, he stated that I was belittling him. Now I know all those acts were narc tactics or narc rage. Once he broke stuff, he stormed out like he did in the beginning and came back in less than an hour, stating where I'm really going to go. I'm pretty sure he was gauging my response or trying to scare me. It worked. My abandonment fear kicked in and I became his willing doormat once again. During my home birth delivery, Rob found time to text it up with Nicole while I was upstairs having contractions. I didn't learn this until a week after. I honestly rationalized that mess and decided even if Rob and I wasn't going to be together, we could get along and co-parent our son. It was in search for answers, and this is when I learned more about narcissism and how it really applied to my situation. I slowly started to put the pieces together, and after finding a snapshot of back-page profiles on his phone and dick pics along with 3-day-long chats to some old white lady, I confronted Rob about who he was in an emotional rant. I regret doing that. I don't know what I expected him to do, but I seemed to have scared him initially. A fear that I was on to him and would expose him properly. When that died over, Rob would say every now and again, Natasha, we have been together for 4 years. I thought, yeah, with lots of work on my part, and later I thought he is saying that to make me feel stupid for sticking with his ass for that much time. I started gray rocking him when my son was about 9 months old. I told him that new boundaries were going to be in place, and I'm 1 foot out of this relationship, and the next best thing, if he doesn't genuinely make long-term changes, is us learning to co-parent. Seeming as if that sparked him to start a love bomb and destroy mission on me, I partly fell for it. Rob was still taking us out and doing grocery shopping. He seemed somewhat into taking care of his son, though at times fake. He would always hold our son in the carriage. I would put a stop to that when I realized he was just getting attention of looking like an involved black father. So many women fall for that shit and find it appealing. He went out of his way to get this photo of us, a family blown up and framed, and took up the entire wall. He started buying lots of weed, edibles, wine every week, even bought mushrooms, which I refused to try, but I did hit his sister's device, which proved to be a bad choice that might have possibly ended me up back in the hospital. This time around, I tried my best not to be admitted, but was so scared and confused with who was on my side. I remember saying to the doctor, I don't know who to trust. I was admitted for a week around this time. When I was released, I knew Rob was for sure my enemy and not truly concerned about my well-being. My being admitted was a joke to him, and he got a kick out of the entire thing. Rob once texted me as a threat that he would show me boundaries, but I wasn't going to like it. I remember coming home and him randomly stating, "You're an empath," with a weird smirk on his face. At this point, I was drained, and that's what so he's actually done some narcissism research. At this point, I was very drained, having a new baby, breastfeeding, dealing with a virus that literally had me foaming at the mouth. And the drama of my household was causing me to be quite dull, if not unhappy. I was happy to have my son, very much over his father's abuse and mind games. Rob had the nerve, after all of this, to say to me, "It seems as if you don't enjoy being a mother. You aren't engaged." I knew he was no good. He was out to destroy and cause drama. My mother was over his nonsense as well, but made the choice to subtly tell me of the bullshit she was noticing with Rob. She threaded lightly, concerned that if she came off as angry and concerned as she was, I would push her away or I would feel pressure to choose between them. She allowed me the space to see and move as I saw fit. Rob really worked hard to get me to turn on my mom and my mom to turn on me. He complained about almost anything my mom did. He even told my mom, "Natasha loves me more than she loves you, and she can't stand you, and she can't even stand you." Is that true, Natasha? Can you not stand your mother? I think there's some truth to that. Look, I keep telling you, your mother's not a good actor in any of this. She's just not. This tactic backfired on him because he underestimated our genuine bond. Rob accused my mom of taunting him. Then I asked how he stated with her religious music playing comments towards him. Rob accused my mom of taunting him when I asked how he stated with her religious music. Was she blasting religious music at him? Is that what you're saying? One day while my mom was watching our son Rob decided to attack my mom for playing gospel music. He told her to turn the music down, and my mom didn't. He got a knife and placed it at her throat while she was holding our son and proceeded to pick up her phone and break it. My mom called the police and eventually filed a peace-off order. I, by law, could not kick Rob out of the apartment, but I did ask him to leave and told him he could save up money for his month's rent for his new location. When I asked him why he attacked my mother, he said she provoked him with absolutely no emotion. Rob doesn't care. Oh, I think she definitely provoked him. Don't tell me she didn't provoke him. She got exactly the reaction she wanted out of him. You giving your, let me tell you, I know your mother blasted the gospel music, driving him and fucking insane to the point where he snapped and pulled the knife on her. He's absolutely wrong, but don't sit there and try to act like your mother didn't provoke him. Your mother provoked him. That's what black women do. They provoke. They provoke. Especially a black woman in your mother's situation where she's vying for your attention and your money and your home. Your mother provoked him 100%. Doesn't make what he did right. She provoked him. Rob doesn't care. Rob tried to cut a deal where he would move out if I allowed him to claim my son on his taxes. I wasn't making no deal with this fool, and he either caught narc rage or strategically planned to get a reaction out of me. But I had enough. I felt like I was watching myself outside of my body, as if I turned into Rob, no emotion, having dull robot, and Rob seemed very content with himself. Rob came home one day and demanded that my mom get off his couch. She complied, and Rob began to destroy the couch and throw it over the balcony. Well, that's rational. He took down the flat screen TV and pretty much left the place a mess. He had the nerve to come upstairs and take a nap in the bed. When I got home, a quiet storm was building up, and when I saw him in bed resting while my mom and son were locked in a room out of fear of what he would do next, I went off on him and told him that he needs to go live with whichever one of those girls would take him and leave me and mine alone. I told him to go live with Nicole, and he stated some crap about him being friends with Nicole over 7 years. It was random, but just further solidified just how unstable Rob really was. He finally left. I changed the lock on the door. The next day, I filed my own protective order against him. Going through the court system is another added trauma that one can't understand unless they go through it. But that's much more traumatic if you're in court with a narcissist. Once Rob showed up to the courthouse on the day of the hearing and asked if he could hold our son, I reluctantly allowed him to. When we were called to enter the courtroom, Rob went to the bathroom and never came in the courtroom for our hearing, which meant he got over me once again, and my time was wasted, and I had to take another day off from work and potentially get treated like crap from a bitter-ass judge who would stereotype me as some ghetto bitter baby mama. I eventually went no contact with him November 28th. This is just the beginning of the end. Rob started his smear campaign on Facebook and rapidly gave his order to his flying monkeys. Rob has 7 sisters, and in a matter of weeks, all but 3 of them reached out to me. They all kept asking me if I was okay, as if they were waiting for me to mentally break. His mother and brother even got in on it. I saw the brother in the neighborhood, apparently. He was doing work in the area. Rob had painted me out to be mentally unstable and my mother to be some super manipulator who turned me against him. Your mother's not the reason that he broke up. Your mother's part of the problem, though. He's not wrong about your mother. He's not. I'm sorry. And this is your main problem, Natasha, is your mother. Your mother's the one who set you on the course to be abused by this guy. Why is your mother living with you at 30? You're 33. Why are you living with your mother? I've seen this happen so many times in the... You are not responsible for your fucking mother. She's not that old. She's holding you back. You think she's this bond? She's not. She's your anchor. It ain't a good thing. He would write paragraphs about supporting loved ones with mental disorders on Facebook and get comments stating for him to stick in there and keep his head up. He must have forgot that he added some of my friends to his Facebook. Salima let him have it and called him out on what she knew. He showed his spiteful and said it was so nasty. He called her all types of degrading terms, and all that fake compassion and heartbreak over me went out the window. I became the biggest lying whore, him projecting. Salima commented right after, now here everyone is the real Robert Reed. He quickly erased all comments and blocked her. After leaving numerous messages on my phone that were sent to black message folder and the failure of flying monkeys, he's resorted to blocking me as well. We are still in court over visitation and custody. He was granted supervised visitation every 2 weeks. I didn't want him to get any visitation, but now I'm just focused on getting full custody. My concern is that he will garner sympathy from the judge like he did in court the last time. I thought he didn't show up. I know there are good men who want to be great fathers to their children, but Rob is trying to capitalize on this fact that clearly doesn't apply to him. He's proven time and again that he acts as if he cares for people only if he can benefit from them in some form or fashion. He knows he isn't shit, but still needs others to believe he is a man, when in fact he is a toddler in an adult body. I was in a relationship with Rob for 4 years and honestly could write much more. I'm grateful to be out of this mess with my mind, and I'm doing the work to regain my self-worth, learning to set up real boundaries. Most glad I had the courage to leave and ensure my son isn't raised in a toxic environment. I would love to hear your thoughts, Ollie, and read the comments of fellow subscribers. Thank you for your time and efforts. Peace. Rob's an asshole, but your mother's the real problem. I mean, that's what I can tell you. Your mother's the real problem here, not Rob. The reason you put all your value into whether men like you or not is due to your mother and your father. And you got that woman living with you still, thinking she's your bond. She is not. She ain't innocent in any of this. So, I hope that helps. Thank you so much for your contribution and your story, Natasha. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comment section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, a narcissist you'd like to expose, you'd like to set up Skype, a phone call, have a private video made, or a Facebook live chat, or you'd like to sponsor a video like this for someone who needs help and can't afford it, or just make a contribution to the channel in general to keep it supported, growing, and successful, because this channel survives 100% on contributions from you guys. Without you, all this goes away. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do with the PayPal and email links in the description box. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been The Narcissistic Resistance.